Thanks, Nick and Yariv, for joining us. We're here today with Velocity Ventures and their portfolio company, Hyper. For those who don't know, I set up Mara Invest as an investment platform to help the average investor build and save their wealth through exclusive private equity and venture capital funds. So with that in mind, we have Velocity Ventures on our platform, and they're here today to talk about their strategy and what they're doing great. Thank you, Nick.
Good evening, Sasha. And hi, Yariv. Thank you for having us this evening. Great to be here.
So do you want to give a brief intro about Velocity Ventures, what you're doing, why it's so great, and Hyper as well as your portfolio company?
Sure. Yeah. So Velocity Ventures is a venture capital firm based out of Singapore. We're a sector-specific fund, so we're focused on the travel and hospitality industry. We launched the fund around 2 years ago as COVID was taking hold, with a view to supporting founders who had either established a travel and hospitality startup before COVID and needed some support to get through, or recognizing also that there were a group of founders who were identifying changes that were going on in the travel and hospitality space and were starting new businesses on the back of that during COVID. So it's very much a COVID-themed fund, and we've recognised that there were valuation adjustments that took place, and a rebound in the industry that was going to allow for our investee companies to profit from that. And one of the key themes that's come out of the work that we've done is the labour shortage that exists in the travel and hospitality industry globally. It's something that existed prior to COVID, but which has been exacerbated by COVID as people have left the industry. And that particular hotspot led us, after quite a lot of research, to meet Yariv and his co-founder, Yudi, who created Hyper. So that's probably a good point for me to hand over to Yariv for his introduction.
Hi, good noon, and thank you, Sasha and Nick. Hyper develop and operate autonomous fast food stores. We develop a robotic automation platform that exactly aim to solve this big problem in the market, in the hospitality, in the food service, fast food, anywhere that labor need to fill the floor and do some actions in relate to food. We are focused on the fast food, but our technology and solutions can go to any food service operation. Basically, it can work in the hospitality, in schools, stadiums, universities, wherever. Now in football stadiums as well. And we decided that we will focus on it's not the thing of taking the labor out, but it's more to increase the unit contribution and to enable a very high-speed scale. That lead to a full automated flow production line. Now we're doing the pizza. Our vision is to tackle, of course, other verticals, food verticals, the bowl food, the hamburger, salads, boulangerie, ice cream, any food type that is stores that need to automate their flow. So this is what we do in Hyper. We're based in Israel. We already had a pilot with one of the biggest brands in the world for pizza in Israel. Now we are preparing to go and launch a overseas pilot in the United States. And in parallel, because we have the whole line, we are start taking some modules out and transform it into a standalone equipment that can be retrofitted into existing stores. So we basically build. Some operators want to jump to the complete solution and start there, and some operators want to utilize and get more of their existing stores. So we are basically try to cover the whole range, and solve problems where they exist with this sector.
Cool, very interesting. And we do have a video of the robotic pizza maker in action, which we'll show in the second part of the webinar. But yeah, I look forward to seeing that. So yeah, I think, Nick, one thing we were talking about is, my interest in the Southeast Asia region. I've traveled into it a lot, and, personally, I've wanted just some exposure. So, how does your strategy take advantage of that? And, what are the macro strengths which, you're really playing into within Southeast Asia? I mean, a lot of us in the Western world, we see cost of living crisis, inflationary pressures, geopolitical issues, but, how does Southeast Asia at the moment compare to some of the headwinds which we're facing in the West?
Yeah. I think it's quite a different situation here in this region at the moment. And I think the first thing to really recognise is that Southeast Asian is a collection of quite a number of diverse countries. You've got diverse ethnic groups, you've got diverse economies, ranging from countries like Singapore, which have some of the highest GDP capita per head, to countries like Laos, which have some of the lowest. So it is a very diverse region. But what ties it together is obviously its geographical proximity, and particularly is some of the features of low-cost manufacturing, a rising middle class, and importantly for our fund is an international destination for tourism. So the region has not suffered some of the excesses that we've seen in capital markets and in some other countries, for example, the US or in Europe during the COVID period. And so we haven't had the pullback to the same extent in our regional capital markets. What we also haven't seen in this region is the wage and price spiral that we have in some other countries, again, for example, US and Europe. So the economies are generally in pretty good shape, and I think we haven't seen the sort of economic headwinds that you referred to earlier, Sasha. There is still a significant inbound tourism market into Southeast Asia, and so there'll be an impact in our region, particularly in the sector that we focus on, from markets such as the US. But one of the things that's remained resilient throughout COVID has been the domestic tourism market. We're talking about a region of 600 million people with a rising middle class, all who have aspiration to travel. And during the COVID period, that internal market has supported a lot of the tourism industry throughout this region. And that aspect continues to remain strong.
And just to summarize on that point, that this is Southeast Asian people within the countries traveling intercontinentally with each other, not just Westerners coming to Southeast Asia, right? And that plays to that rising middle class thing you were saying.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so during the COVID years, all of the countries like Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, which are incredibly dependent on inbound tourism, all turned towards their domestic market, and that was really the mainstay of their industry for 2 years, and it proved to be a stronger market than they all expected. The hotel industry, the restaurant industry, the attractions all depended on that market, and I think that's been a strength of this region during the COVID period, and something that I think will continue to be important if inbound from Europe and from the US slows as a result of global economic issues.
Got it. Okay. And then why is this travel and leisure industry so ripe for disruption? And what companies or tech-related companies are you looking at which it has an advantage in this area?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what we identified during COVID was that it was a set of artificial constraints that were put in place on an industry that in our region represents up to 15% of GDP. So if you look at a country like Thailand, that's in excess of 15. It's nearly 20% of GDP is the travel and hospitality industry, and that was artificially constrained as a result of the regulations that were put in place during the pandemic. And to us, that presented an investment opportunity because we felt that those artificial constraints weren't going to exist forever, and that they would eventually be released. And we had a bit of a window into that because Europe and the US lifted those constraints before this region did. And so, we were able to look to Europe and see that, okay, these constraints were slowly being lifted. People were allowed to start traveling again. Masks were removed, lockdowns stopped. And we felt that that was going to happen in our region. And that was really what gave rise to the thesis for our fund. And as we've seen, that's played out. The one area that, of course, hasn't come back is China. And I was on the phone today to some guys in the airline industry talking about, how is China going to come back, which is an important inbound market into the region. When is it going to come back? And that's a question that's not easy to answer. The consensus, I think, is that that's going to happen quite slowly throughout next year, and that it will change. And the question that we were asking each other on the call today was, for example, will group tourism be allowed out of China? Will they only allow independent travelers to travel first and then only groups at a later stage? And so these are the kind of questions. Which markets will Chinese travelers want to come to in Southeast Asia? So all of these points really talk to a fact that the industry has emerged from COVID in quite a different shape than it went into it. And that's given rise to opportunities like the one that Yariv's pursuing, where we've got this labour shortage that's been exacerbated as a result of people being pulled out of the industry. And that gives rise to entrepreneurial opportunity for guys like Yariv and Yudi to do what they're doing.
Got it. Understood. And so I think the labour shortage was one aspect there. Any other portfolio companies which you've backed playing on some different niches within travel and leisure you can talk about?
Yeah, so we've done an investment in a QR code ordering system for restaurants, recognizing that contactless, again, is a theme that was somewhat nascent before COVID. It was starting to emerge, but contactless QR code ordering in restaurants and payment at the table is, we think, a theme that will be here to stay even as COVID passes. And so we made an investment into a company that does that. That's been installed in about 4,000 restaurants throughout Southeast Asia. So that's one of the examples of the type of investment that we're doing. But yeah, there's a whole series that we've done. We've done investments in companies that are seeking to link restaurant suppliers together with restaurants and create marketplaces. We've done a hotel distribution platform, recognizing that in Southeast Asia, many of the hotels are smaller, independently owned and not part of a chain. So we've backed a company that helps those smaller independent hotels distribute their products. We've done an investment in a company that is effectively the Uber for tour guides and allows tour guides to become their own product generators and product distributors and enter the gig economy. So these are the types of themes that we're looking at the moment in our sector.
Interesting. And then how is the venture scene developing generally in Southeast Asia as well? Are you seeing more international funds trying to get a local footprint or more local funds emerging? And how do you co-invest alongside some of these players? Any comments to make on that?
Yeah. No, it's evolved significantly. In Singapore, where we're based, the government has made great efforts and done an excellent job to promote the venture capital industry. They've created legislation to allow firms like us to create funds and to operate funds in a very efficient manner. They've promoted the startup ecosystem by co-funding accelerators. They've put a lot of government money into the sector. So I think across a multiple of fronts, the Singapore government has done that. And then the typical playbook in this region is then others will follow suit. And so we've seen Indonesia do the same thing. We've seen Vietnam do the same thing. And I think Singapore is playing the role as a wealth management centre for the region to attract family offices and bring funds into Singapore. And then that money is very often deployed, as we have, through the region, looking at deals in Indonesia, in Vietnam, and so on. So yeah, it's vibrant, and we've started to see the first waves of exits take place, which is great news. So we've seen some companies list here in Singapore. We've seen the Indonesian stock market as well, with some listings recently there of Gojek, which is a noted sort of food and ride-hailing company. So yeah, vibrant, active, and in good shape.
The one thing I noticed, particularly I think last year, is a lot of the US venture funds, the large brands, were setting up shop really just on the back of valuations being a lot higher in the Western economies, and just trying to diversify away from some of that. I think would you agree? You've seen a similar sort of trend?
Yeah. There's been some appearance of some of the traditional, American VC firms from the Valley. I wouldn't say we've seen a huge influx here. There has been some that have set up. Certainly, the big operators, the Sequoias, the SoftBanks are here in force. But at the early stage where we operate, we do seed to Series A investment with checks of several $100,000 up to 1.5 million would be our sweet spot. They're mostly homegrown. And I think what we're starting to see in this region is more sector-specific funds like ours, which are focusing on, for example, med tech or fintech or some specific vertical, rather than investing agnostically across all sectors.
Got it. So what I'm hearing is still very much local venture funds, very active in the early stage investing as you are. Right. Okay.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm really interested to hear about your personal story as well, as I think you and your brother set this fund up, which I can imagine will be quite fun and also troublesome at times. But going from entrepreneurs within, I think it was the industrial space, tell us about that personal story, and then what skills did you gain from just being an entrepreneur in terms of taking out how you work with early stage companies?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I have an entrepreneurial background. In 1990, I was backpacking through Indonesia and recognized there were some opportunities there in the construction space. Started a company there with my brother. We lived in Indonesia from 90 to 94. Got into the building materials manufacture, started concrete plants, started quarries there. Then went to Vietnam, expanded our business to Vietnam. And it was really shuttling back and forth between Vietnam and Indonesia in the early 90s that brought us to Singapore, which is where we've lived ever since. So I've been here for 27 years now. And spent most of the 90s, 2000s building up our company, which was known as Ready Mix. And then we had an exit from that about 7 years ago, and started to recycle the capital from that exit into various projects. And we gave some of that money to private managers to look after, but we decided to keep the slice for early stage investment ourselves and manage that ourselves. And so we did an initial fund called Yariv Reches, which was the follow-on from Ready Mix, our construction business. And then we invested in a whole range of different early stage companies, and several of those ended up being in travel and hospitality, which we did with the guy who we've done Velocity Ventures with. He has a hospitality background. He's a hotelier. His name's Patrick Imbardelli, and we made a few private investments together with him. And then when COVID emerged, we decided to do Velocity on the back of the theme I just described earlier. So yeah, it has been an interesting journey, one that's taken me from sort of entrepreneur to the point now where I'm able to support younger guys like Yariv, who are starting on their own entrepreneurial journey. And that's great fun. I really enjoyed, working with founders and sharing some of the experience from my own entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah. And I guess, Yariv, it's easier for you to resonate with a fellow entrepreneur rather than a venture capitalist who's just been in banking or finance, for example, right?
Yeah, I agree. There's more synergy with one that comes from this from this field, and he did it himself, and he knows what you need to go through, and what the experience of this ups and downs and mania depressed situation that. I think only entrepreneur that start something and go through the all stages of a business, from initiation to a established business that has a stable cash flow, or at least something that can feed the business and can look for additional growth. But yeah, it's easier. I think sometimes it's make the discussions are more in a way more reality. You can talk eye to eye, you look on the eye level, and it's not someone that come and just lend you fund and or invest in you and accept to see some covenants are behaving in some manners. I think it's a entrepreneur that comes and invests in a company, and I can say, because I also has like a track record with different initiatives and companies, and it's always different, and you have a partner, and I think this is what we feel with Nick, for example. Okay, it's something that he knows. What we called in the industry, or at least the entrepreneurs, we always define between smart money and dummy money. Like smart would be either very strategic, can bring you closer to a business, or someone that really understand you from the psychology side and can guide you, be a partner, and knows when and how to jump in to help you. So yeah, it's a big advantage, I think.
Thank you, Yari.
Got it. Okay. And then, Nick, what does your firm look like? How big is it? How you staff? How do you divide resources? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have 3 partners at Velocity. The first partner is my brother and I, who have come in from our ready mix background, entrepreneurial background, having lived in Indonesia, Vietnam, done business in those countries, know the region very well, been here for many, many years. So that's the first partner. 2 guys, but one partner, Nick and John. Then the second partner is Patrick Imbardelli. Patrick was the CEO for Intercontinental Hotels for Southeast Asia and Northeast Asia. So he also lived in the region for 20 years, running Intercontinental. He then became the CEO of Pan Pacific, which is a regional hotel chain. So he's a lifetime hotelier, very familiar with the travel and hospitality industry. So brings the kind of industry connections and knowledge to the table. And then the third partner is Bennett Lee. Bennett is an investment professional. He's had a banking background, came through investment banking in Singapore. So they're really the 3 legs to the stool, and we like to think that we each bring complementary capability to the table through our different experiences.
Got it. And the wider team as well, how big is the actual firm in terms of numbers?
There's 12 of us in total. So we've got, Bennett has 2 investment analysts that work in his team. We have an investor relations team of 2. We have marketing and a couple of people in our back office supporting finance and onboarding of investors. So yeah, that's our team. It's a small team, and we're a relatively small fund. So we have at the moment 8 portfolio companies. So we're roughly halfway through, the deployment phase of this particular fund. We'll do roughly another 8 investments to complete out at around 15.
Got it. Okay, so it's quite, the platform is very, very established, and I've met most of the team. A lot of them are local to Southeast Asia region as well, which gets that intimate feel within the local VC community.
Yeah.
Got it. And then there's a lot of I speak to a lot of aspiring fund managers who either have entrepreneurial background or background in some angel investing in some capacity. So do you have any advice for them in terms of actually going about launching and setting up a fund, and maybe some of the key steps to take before doing so?
Yeah, I think it is quite a move towards going from investing your own money to investing others, and that comes with a great degree of responsibility. And I think institutionalizing the process and getting to a point where you try to take some of the learnings from your own investment activity and to apply those at scale has been, some of the things that we've worked on at Velocity. I don't personally get to see and meet every company. And so I get to see those who have gone through our initial filter, but we try and cut half the companies we meet. We meet roughly 400 companies a year. So, there has to be a process which the team applies to get to a point where the partners only meet those that have got the highest prospects of an investment and a return for our investors. And so trying to take the principles that we'd learned from investing personally and applying those to, a team and being able to do it at scale has taken some work. And I think, that's something that I'm sure a lot of more established firms have developed, but we had to put quite a bit of time and effort into that aspect of it in order for us to feel comfortable that, we could do this without actually meeting every company ourselves.
Got it. Understood. So it's about professionalizing and bringing that institutional feel of process. Got it.
Yeah. But I think having said that, Sasha, early stage investing is about backing individuals. Very often you're talking about companies that, are not much more than an idea. So the individuals involved are key to the success here. So, while you can kind of put processes and procedures and have scorecards and do all the rest of it, it still comes down to that sort of intangible factor of being able to meet, a guy like Yariv and his partner Yudi. I flew down there, met them in Tel Aviv. We spent a couple of days together. I bought one of the investors in our fund, who's an ex-Pizza Hut franchisee. And we spent 2 great days together. We tried Yariv's pizza, and we invested. So yeah, the personal side's incredibly important as well.
By the way, it's also for the entrepreneurs, for the other side. In the end of the day, especially today, post-COVID, during and post-COVID, many things are happen remotely through like I will speak now on video chat applications, and the face-to-face and the chemistry and to feel the pulse and meet the people in person. This is we think, and I think it's part of the process. Of course, for investor, but also for entrepreneur. I think the experience when Nick arrived to Israel, for us, it was something. Number one, we can demonstrate hyper solutions, and we can talk in length and in depth on who we are, what we do, and where we are going. And the opportunity for Nick to sit with us in the same room, and hear all that and understand and see also in the field the store operating and the other team members, etc. This is, I think it's so important. In the end of the day, it's people that doing business together, and to get everybody to be on the same page and to see the same picture, the more or less the same vision, and push, because you need to push. You need very strong and very high scale energy, to create this this thing and make it happen. It's only when people believes in people and works together.
Got it. So Nick, you touched upon it just now, your research process. So for me, I feel this is a real differentiator compared to other venture funds. Rigorous research process you have is very much akin to some traditional, buyout private equity funds, which I've seen. So do you want to tell us a bit about that and how you go about just researching all of the companies which you ultimately invest in?
Yeah. So being a sector-specific fund, we do things quite differently to a generalist VC. So what we'll do is every 6 months, we sit down with the investors in our fund, many of whom are from the industry. So we have hotel groups, we have airlines. I mentioned previously, an ex-franchisee of Pizza Hut is an investor in our fund. So many of the investors are industry players. We have corporate partners who are also working with us as you would almost as an outsourced corporate venture capital arm. So they've invested and we share insights with them. And then we have other players in the industry who we work with, our own portfolio companies. And we talk to all these guys every 6 months and try and understand where are the pain points in the industry. And then on the back of that, we then go out and look for companies that are solving those problems. And having the validation of a corporate come to us and say, for example, Pizza Hut, and say, we are having huge problems globally finding people who can stretch dough. There are a massive shortage of people who can stretch dough. So, that talks to us about labor issues, that talks to us about, massive problems in the industry, and that guides us in terms of the companies that we look at. So the themes that we're working on at the moment are obviously labour, the challenges in the industry at the moment around decarbonisation, and when you think about the travel and hospitality industry, it's a major emitter. So there's incredible opportunities to invest in startups that are solving that problem. The way that travel and hospitality is distributed is changing dramatically. There are, the application of blockchain to the industry, and so these are all, themes that we're looking at, and we actually go out and landscape companies, as we did in the case of Yariv's investment, where we went out and looked at a whole lot of robotics companies and chose Hyper. So it's kind of a backwards process from what most VCs do.
Got it. So it's very much identifying the pain points and then surveying a landscape just to see what's out there. Right. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And, where the Southeast Asian piece comes in is, we need the company to either be in Southeast Asia or to have great prospects of expanding into Southeast Asia so that we can help them, which is, in Yariv's case, he's based in Israel, but we think there's huge opportunity for his products across our region.
Got it. And then I think I remember you saying there was something about how often you refresh this list. Was it every 6 months? Or was that...
Yeah. So we're going through that process right now. So I mentioned earlier that I was on the phone to some airline guys today. That was part of seeing, what are they facing at the moment. And one of the issues that, they're all trying to get ready for is the re-emergence of the Chinese traveller. They were a significant element of what was happening in the region. And, a lot of people are thinking about how is that going to happen? What's the Chinese traveller going to be looking for? Which markets do they want to go to? So, these are new themes. And so we'll think about that. And that may or may not give rise to an investment opportunity. But that whole process is what sort of drives our thesis. and gives us a kind of like a guiding light as to which companies we want to go after.
Got it. And then how does the funnel look like? You mentioned, is it 400 companies a year? How do you sort of get that down through to different
it's
stages?
a pretty brutal process. And that's something else I've learned as part of being a venture capitalist is you do have to say no a lot. So we only make between 6 and 8 investments a year, yet we see 400 companies. So it's a 1% to 2% hit rate, it's pretty brutal. But we have very strong pipeline as a result of that process I described by going out and looking for companies. And we see a lot of entrepreneurial activity around solving these problems that I've talked about. So in terms of pipeline, there's no shortage. What's important for us is to be disciplined about the process we go through. I think our industry has demonstrated, not to be too critical, but somewhat of a lack of discipline over the last cycle. And I think that's probably what's led to, too much capital being applied to some industries that don't deserve it. And so one of the things that, we're very focused on is being disciplined about, how we approach these opportunities and how we go through that pipeline and come up with the final companies we do want to invest in.
Got it. And Yariv, Nick just said the process was brutal. So do you have anything to say about Nick's process compared to maybe some of the other venture funds you've met and worked with?
No, I think it's pretty similar. It's brutal. It's in the end of the day, you need to choose one or few from a group of hundreds. So I can tell you that the entrepreneur need to be ready and will hear many no's. Okay, but once a yes coming, you need to take it with two hands and take it forward. So this is the system. This is how it works. Not only in this industry. Everywhere that where you need to choose. I can tell you that it's from the entrepreneur side and in hyper. You always think that you have the most incredible thing in hand, and you have the best team. And you have already the technology not on the shelf, but on the ground working, and it's the market is waiting for you, and the total available is huge, and you can show the traction, etc., etc. But still, they say no because they need to either because of discipline or not according to the discipline. I agree with Nick, by the way. I think it was crazy the last 2 years. I mean, the valuations and the amount of capital poured on specific sectors that then people realize that are either it's not a real thing or it's not worth it. While other sectors like the robotics, automation, where we deal with the day-to-day things of life, are getting less fund than it should be because it's not. I mean. In hyper, we develop something that solving a critical problems. Okay, it's not, by the way, only the labor shortage. It's also food. It's solve food safety, which is a huge issue before the COVID, but much bigger after COVID. And also they solve the issues of the rise of and the popularity of on-demand online and on-demand delivery, the aggregator sector that raised in follow to that, and it got all the business and all the sector to a not stable situation because not so many people makes money. And eventually the end customer sit at home, wherever, Asia, America, Israel, Europe, and wants to order a pizza, but nobody either can provide it or ask for a non-reasonable price. So it's looking from entrepreneur eyes, this unstable and unbalanced investment goes to one or either a sector. It's something that bother you. It's even sometimes bother you more than the no's you get from ventures that you are in a process in. I think what I can tell about Nick and his team and Velocity, that once they decided that they jump in and wants to drill down and understand, and they decided that the needle moved and they wanted to take it forward in due diligence before they saying yes for the investment. They did it very seriously and very deeply. And so you can feel as entrepreneur, you can feel the other side pulls, and you understand it's serious and you devote to this process. While others can be very take the process very softly. So if they say no, you don't take it so hard. And if Velocity eventually would tell us something like no, that would be disappointed, because we invest so much effort in this process, okay? And not like them, others that did the same. This is where you feel as entrepreneur, you feel more disappointed. But this is their business. This is how they act. This is how they should continue, I think, because in the end of the day, they put either their money or others' money, but under their responsibility.
Got it, understood. So that was the investment process. How about post-investment, Nick? Can you talk a bit about some of the work you're doing to help Yariv and Hyper grow and scale globally?
Yeah, so I mean, our role really is to help Yariv and Yudi and their team to come to Southeast Asia. So we've got a big visit planned in February, where the team are coming down here, and we'll be doing kind of a roadshow, taking the Hyper team around, visiting all the travel and hospitality operators that are connected with us in Singapore, and displaying the product, introducing them to Yariv and Yudi, and hopefully converting that into some business. So this is the sort of thing we do, is to try and leverage the network that we have here. And there's a lot of other sort of smaller things where we're working together along the way, but I'd say that's the key initiative that we've got lined up for February.
Right, and and it's something, a partner like a investor, a venture capital. This is what you accept to help you with the extend and expand your network, and help you to get more traction from the market, especially if you had the specialties and specialized people from this domain, and also capital and fund additional raising. And I can say that Velocity, Nick and Velocity team already contribute in the fund, the capital side, on top of what they did. And now we're planning this roadshow on February, when we launch our duplicator, this dough maker, special device that appeals. We already know that big companies in Asia are interested. We had last week a very big visit here from Asia. That didn't came through Nick, but I'm pretty sure that getting moving to do real business, installations, setting up and supporting these initiatives in Asia would be with a lot of support from Nick's team.
Got it, understood. And then forward-looking, Yariv, what plans? What are your ambitions for Hyper? Where are we going to see you in a few years?
Okay, so Hyper, I say, the problems we talked about: the labor, the food safety, the on-demand, the online on-demand aggregators. we want to be a key component, you know, in the new world, I would say, of having automated and robotics food making processes. Our current platform, robotic platform, support a fast food store. We replaced actually and literally the whole store from A to Z, from the ingredient storage to dispatch and provide to the delivery operations. We want to be in different verticals, food verticals. We started with the pizza. We have the store. We run a pilot. Now we have a upgraded store that goes to installation in the United States and later on Asia. And we have these devices and equipment that we pull out of the store and make it as a standalone equipment, like the dough maker, which is a big problem. In the pizza stores, they don't have today the specialty to make the dough properly according to the brand standard. So we are trying to make our equipment and solutions the brand standard, and to by that making it sold to all stores that the franchisees and sub-franchisees and all stores of this brand. We want to expand to be in the hamburger, the bowl food, and other verticals, and we want to dominate what we do now, because we are the first one that came out with this full store concept. So we want to continue dominate this market and get more and more customers for that. Just a word about Hyper. So I said it's based in Israel. We have 3 founders. Nick mentioned Udi, Mr. Udi Shammai has like 30 plus years in the fast food sector in Israel. Also developed and used his chains, pizza chains, to be like a beta site for different technology. Already sold a few companies that developed different software solutions for front of the house, back of the house, but technically to support the operation of a fast food store. We have also in the founders Arel Shafran, is a ex elite unit, a military elite unit, also a technology project coordinator, senior project coordinator within the special unit in Army Special Forces in Israel. So we got our team, and we have, you know, in the core team, we have a software, senior software people, automation, robotics, food technology, etc. We are 12 people in the core, and we work with different engineering company in Israel, companies that specialize in developing unique projects. Because of the military and security situation of Israel, you can imagine that there are so much capabilities that we could embrace and bring to our needs and develop these unique solutions of Hyper that based on this software platform and the robotic automation and the machinery. This is Hyper. Maybe we can see the movie, Sasha, that shows.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, Yariv sent me a video of the robotic pizza maker in motion, and yeah, I think you'll agree it's quite remarkable. Let's add this to the stream now. Wow, quite
Thank you,
remarkable.
Sasha.
Well done for creating such a thing. I look
Thank you,
forward to
Sasha.
trying it one day.
Yeah, you
So-
should come and test it, or wait till we install like tens of them in the London area.
Yeah, great. So, Nick, that was Hyper. I mean, can you talk about some of the other portfolio companies you have and maybe some of the other value add which you bring to them?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier a company by the name of Aigens, AIGENS. So that's a QR code ordering system. These guys are from Hong Kong. They started out actually building kiosks to enter into the McDonald's and other fast food restaurants. And then their clients asked them to integrate those kiosks into the POS system. And that really took them from being a hardware provider to a software provider. And then slowly they integrated other platforms into their system. So they work as a middleware that basically links all the different hardware functions that you would see in a restaurant. They have QR code ordering. So they're installed in about 4,000 restaurants across Southeast Asia, working with a lot of the big chains and doing very well. They have an interesting model. They charge a percentage of turnover that goes through their platform. And so the installation costs are free, but they take a percentage of top line. So that would be one. Zuzu Hospitality is an interesting one. They're helping the independent hotels in the region to distribute. A lot of the independent hotels don't have their own revenue management capability, so they tend to just charge a rate per night for the weekend and a rate per night for the weekday. They might get a bit more sophisticated during school holidays, but that's about it. And so they're losing a lot in terms of managing their room rates to match their forward vacancy. And the big groups spend a lot of time and have teams of people and a lot of artificial intelligence now, data analytics that goes into setting room rates. And smaller hotels don't have access to that. So these guys have identified that that's a big opportunity. And they've got around 3,000 hotels on their platform across Southeast Asia, helping them to manage revenue and distribute. And we've just recently, our most recent investment has been in a company that takes data from a whole range of different sources in the sector and provides predictive analysis to airlines, airports, and so on. And the thesis here is that, you know, we're living in a more uncertain world where predicting passenger loads, predicting how many people are going to travel from one place to another is far more complex than what it used to be, but a very, very important thing for an airline or an airport or a duty-free operator, for example, to know. And so these guys they've come out of IATA and they've developed a very interesting platform that takes multiple data sources, uses machine learning to make predictive forecasts about passenger numbers for pretty much any route around the world. So we backed those guys. So these are the sort of companies that we're looking at the moment.
Got it. Interesting. So we've got about 5 minutes left, but Nick, I thought we could just spend a little bit of time talking about some of those corporate venture partners you have on board and the fact that how they're investing in the fund as well. So really, you know, fostering that alignment of interest, and also, you know, how they could potentially be exit opportunities for some of your venture investments. So yeah, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So as we were setting up Velocity, we identified that as a sector-specific fund, and having seen so many companies, we were sitting on information that would be of interest to corporates, because corporates are trying to solve all of these problems. And, to my previous example about measuring demand, it's a huge issue for them to understand what their demand is going to be. And so, having seen all these companies, we recognized that information was useful for them, and that we could introduce those companies to the corporates and help them decide which technology provider would be suitable to solve the problems that they were working on. And so we started reaching out to corporates, and we created what we call our Corporate Partners Program, which is where a corporate would invest in our fund, and we pretty much open our deal flow to them, whereby they see all of the companies that come in. They tell us their problem statements. We then show them the companies that we've met, and they might want to do business with those companies. Whether we invest or not is a different story, because we might have met a company that we didn't want to invest in because they weren't at the right stage, or they weren't Southeast Asian focused, or whatever it was. But they might have a great product that's solving a problem for a corporate that's part of our program. So we'll still make those connections. And what the corporates do is they invest in our fund. So effectively, we become like an outsourced corporate venture capital arm for them. And what we like about it is that obviously companies like Yariv's get the opportunity to work with these corporates, because we facilitate those introductions. But they can then have a stake in those companies through us, through our fund. They can also co-invest with us, which is the case in Yariv's investment. There was one of the investors in our fund also co-invested with us in Yariv's company. And then that also creates a pathway to exits, because those corporates get to know the portfolio companies, they get insight, and they get comfortable early, and then that can create an exit opportunity. So, it's an important part of what we do, and we're very privileged to work with some great brands. So we have, like, for example, Etihad Airlines is a corporate partner, Klook, Unolja, which are two big OTA operators in our region, are corporate partners. So it's been a great feature of what we do, and very important.
Got it. No, that's really good to hear. And your team personally, you're putting a lot of money into this venture, so you're effectively investing alongside any investors you bring into your fund, right?
Yeah. Patrick, my brother, and I have seeded the fund, so we're the largest investor in the fund, and we believe in what we're doing and putting our time and money behind it.
Got it. Yeah, really, really interesting to hear. Any final comments before we wrap up, or have we covered everything?
Yariv.
Yeah, just I think I missed we look on a hyper solution, and I think this is where also the synergy with the velocity. We look on mainly four market verticals, where Asia is very dominant in because they like, for example, the aggregators. Okay, GrabUp. It started in Asia. Okay, and this is aggregators as a whole. They are looking, they starving, for solutions like Aperture, so they can develop their own control brand and private labels. We also look on another vertical that raised and also become gradually very popular in Asia. It's the dark and ghost kitchens. Okay, where these massive kitchens that make food for other brands and for it can be for catering, it can be for hotels, it can be for brands that make any kind of food, and of course the brands and the emerging brands. These are more in Europe and the United States, but all of them together needs to solve this labor shortage, where we replace it with automation and robotics, and the food safety issue. And I think again that Asia, it's a huge opportunity for us, not because the visit we had last week from a huge company that controlled thousands of stores, fast food stores in Asia, but because it's the special economic situation that Nick told us earlier this interview, and I think it's make it a short-term opportunity for us.
Got it. Well, look, thanks so much, guys. Fascinating discussion. And if anyone wants to learn more about Velocity or Mara platform, please do get in touch with our details being on the website. So thank you very much, Nick and Yariv, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Sasha. Really appreciate it.
Thank
My
you,
pleasure,
Nick.
guys.
See you
There you
soon.
go. Yeah, see you, Yara. Talk soon.
Yeah.